I still remember the exact moment my family stopped being my family. It wasn't gradual, it was surgical, precise, and devastatingly final. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, and we won't be there to pick up the pieces. My mother's words hung in the air of our family estate's grand dining room, each syllable dripping with contempt. I stood there, my hand intertwined with Daniel's, feeling his calloused fingers, stained with paint that never quite washed out. Squeeze mine gently. He was my anchor in this storm, even though he was the reason for it. He's a starving artist, for God's sake. My father spat, not even bothering to look at Daniel. You have a trust fund worth millions, connections to every major corporation in the city, and you're throwing it all away for someone who sells paintings at street fairs? My sister Victoria smirked from her position by the fireplace, swirling her wine glass. She'd always been the golden child, the one who married the hedge fund manager, the one who played by all of father's rules. I give it 6 months before you come crawling back, begging for money when you can't afford rent. We won't be giving it to you, mother added coldly. If you walk out that door with him, you're no longer our daughter. No trust fund, no inheritance, no family name. You'll be nothing. Nothing. That word echoed in my mind. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him. His worn jeans, his paint-splattered shirt, his gentle eyes that saw beauty in everything. He'd never asked me for anything, never wanted my money. He just wanted me. Then I guess I'm nothing, I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. But I'd rather be nothing with someone who loves me than something with people who only love what I represent. My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. Fine. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings. Nothing of value. Your credit cards are already canceled. Your apartment lease is in our name, so you're out by tomorrow. And don't even think about using our family name to get ahead. We'll make sure everyone knows you've been disowned. Victoria actually laughed. Good luck surviving in the real world, little sister. Maybe Daniel can paint you a house. The next morning, I stood in Daniel's tiny studio apartment, our new home. It was smaller than my childhood closet. The walls were covered with his paintings, beautiful chaotic explosions of color that somehow made sense. The mattress on the floor was our bed. The hot plate was our kitchen. I'd gone from a penthouse overlooking Central Park to a fifth-floor walk-up in Brooklyn with a view of a brick wall. And you know what? I didn't regret it. Not for a second. We'll be okay, Daniel whispered, wrapping his arms around me from behind as I stared out the small window. I promise you, we'll build something beautiful together. I believed him. I had to. The first month was harder than I'd imagined. I'd never had a real job. My career had been attending charity galas and sitting on boards where my family name did all the work. Now I was waitressing at a diner, my feet aching, my pride swallowing every rude customer and small tip. Daniel worked 3 jobs, teaching art classes to kids in the morning, doing graphic design freelance in the afternoon, and painting commissioned portraits at night. I'd watch him fall asleep with a paintbrush still in his hand, exhausted but never complaining. We ate ramen more nights than I could count. We walked everywhere because subway fare added up. I sold my designer clothes at consignment shops to make rent, but we had each other. And slowly, I started to see what Daniel had always seen, that wealth wasn't about money. It was about richness of experience, depth of connection, authenticity of purpose. 3 months after my disownment, I ran into Victoria at a coffee shop in Manhattan. I was there for a job interview, a real one, at a small nonprofit that helped underprivileged kids access art education. She was there with her society friends, dripping in designer labels. "Oh my God, is that?" one of her friends whispered, not quietly enough. Victoria's eyes met mine. For a moment, I saw something flicker. Maybe curiosity, maybe pity. But then her mask slipped back into place. "Still slumming it with the painter?" she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I heard you're waitressing now. How the mighty have fallen." Her friends giggled. I felt my face flush, that old shame trying to claw its way back. But then I thought about Daniel, probably in our apartment right now, working on his latest piece. I thought about the life we were building, by brick, with our own hands. I thought about how I'd learned to budget, to cook, to appreciate things I'd taken for granted my entire life. "Yeah," I said, meeting her gaze steadily. "I am, and I've never been happier." I walked out before she could respond, my head held high. I didn't know it then. But that moment, that small act of defiance, was the beginning of everything changing. 6 months into our new life, something shifted. Daniel had been working on a series of paintings, abstract pieces that somehow captured the essence of human emotion in ways I'd never seen before. He called it the Invisible Series because, he said, it was about all the things people felt but never showed: pain, joy, longing. He'd wake up at 4 a.m., paint until he had to leave for his teaching job, come home and paint until midnight. I'd never seen him so possessed by his work. What's driving this? I asked one night, watching him layer colors onto a canvas that seemed to pulse with life. You, he said simply, watching you transform from someone who had everything handed to her into someone who fights for every small victory. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. I'm trying to capture that, the beauty in struggle, the art in survival. I didn't know what to say. I just kissed him, tasting paint and coffee and determination. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I'd gotten the job at the nonprofit, Arts for All, and had been working there for 3 months. My boss, Margaret, was a force of nature who'd built the organization from nothing. She saw something in me, some hunger to prove myself that resonated with her own journey. You have good instincts, she told me one day, and you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. I'm promoting you to program director. It wasn't much, barely a living wage, but it was mine. I'd earned it. Through Arts for All, I met people I never would have encountered in my old life: artists struggling to make rent, kids with raw talent and zero resources, community organizers fighting to keep culture alive in gentrifying neighborhoods. And I met Marcus Chen, a gallery owner in Chelsea who volunteered with our program. Your husband is Daniel Rivers? He asked one day, seeing Daniel's name on my emergency contact form. Do you know his work? Marcus's eyes lit up. Know it? I've been trying to track him down for months. Someone sent me photos of his Invisible series, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about them. Does he have representation? My heart started racing. No. He's been too busy working 3 jobs to even think about gallery representation. Can I see the originals? 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in our tiny apartment surrounded by Daniel's paintings. He'd been silent for 20 minutes, just moving from piece to piece, his expression unreadable. Daniel gripped my hand so tightly I lost circulation. Finally, Marcus turned to us. I want to give you a solo show, 3 months from now, my main gallery space, and I want to feature the entire Invisible series as the centerpiece. Daniel's voice shook. I can't afford to frame them properly, or I'll handle all costs, Marcus interrupted. This is the kind of work that comes along once in a decade, maybe once in a lifetime. Trust me. After Marcus left, Daniel and I just held each other, both of us crying. This was it, his chance, our chance. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Daniel quit 2 of his 3 jobs to focus on completing the series. I took on extra hours at Arts for All to make up the income. We still ate ramen, still walked everywhere, but now there was something else in our tiny apartment. I watched Daniel pour everything into those paintings, every moment of our struggle, every small victory, every sacrifice we'd made. The series grew to 20 pieces, each one more powerful than the last. Marcus was true to his word. He promoted the show everywhere, building buzz in the art world. Critics were intrigued, collectors were curious, but I kept thinking about my family. Would they hear about it? Would they care? I hadn't spoken to any of them in almost a year. No calls, no texts, complete silence. Victoria's Instagram showed her perfect life continuing without me: charity galas, vacation photos, designer everything. My parents had released a statement to their social circle that I was traveling abroad to find myself, which was their polite way of erasing me from their narrative. Sometimes, late at night, I'd feel a pang of loss, not for the money or the lifestyle, but for what I'd thought we were: a family. But then I'd look at Daniel, asleep with paint under his fingernails, and I'd remember I'd chosen real love over fake family, and I'd do it again 1,000 times. 1 week before the gallery opening, something unexpected happened. I was at Arts for All, organizing supplies for our after-school program, when Margaret called me into her office. Sit down, she said, her expression serious. I need to tell you something about your family. My stomach dropped. What about them? Your father's company. Rivers and Stone Development. They're trying to buy the building we're in. They want to tear it down and build luxury condos. We'll lose our space, and 3 other nonprofits will too. I felt sick. Of course, my father would do this. He probably didn't even know Arts for All was where I worked. We were just collateral damage in his endless pursuit of profit. When? I asked. The deal closes in 2 months, unless we can raise enough money to buy the building ourselves. Which, Margaret laughed bitterly. We'd need $2 million. We have about 30,000 in our reserve fund. An idea started forming in my mind. Dangerous, possibly insane, but maybe, just maybe, it could work. Margaret, I said slowly, what if we could raise that money? How? I smiled, thinking about Daniel's upcoming show, about Marcus's confidence, about the buzz building in the art world. Leave that to me. The gallery opening was scheduled for Friday night at 7 p.m. By 6:30, the line wrapped around the block. I stood inside Marcus's gallery, watching the space transform. Daniel's paintings lined the walls, each one lit perfectly, each one telling a story of struggle and beauty and transformation. The centerpiece, the largest painting in the series, was titled Disowned and showed an abstract figure walking away from a golden cage toward a horizon of infinite color. It was us, our story, right there for everyone to see. Nervous? Marcus asked, appearing at my elbow with champagne. Terrified, I admitted. What if no one buys anything? Marcus laughed. Are you kidding? I've already had 3 collectors offer 6 figures for Disowned sight unseen. This is going to be the art event of the season. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard your husband has a gallery show. How cute. Still doesn't change the fact that you're a disappointment. Victoria. Of course she'd heard about it. The art world wasn't as separate from high society as I'd. Another text. Mother and father will be attending. They're on the board of the Metropolitan Arts Foundation. Don't embarrass yourself. My hands started shaking. They were coming. Tonight. Daniel found me in the back office staring at my phone. Hey, what's wrong? I showed him the text. His jaw tightened. Do you want me to have security keep them out? No, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Let them come. Let them see what we've built. At 7:15 p.m. they arrived. I saw them before they saw me. My father in his custom Tom Ford suit, my mother dripping in diamonds that cost more than most people's houses, and Victoria in a dress that probably cost what Daniel and I spent on rent for 6 months. They moved through the crowd like sharks, their eyes scanning the paintings with that particular brand of disdain only the truly wealthy can perfect. Derivative, I heard my father say to someone. The artist is clearly trying too hard to be profound. My mother nodded. I give it 5 years before he's completely forgotten. These trendy abstract pieces never last. Victoria was taking photos, probably to mock on her Instagram later. I watched them from across the room, and something strange happened. I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel like the disappointment, the black sheep, the one who'd thrown everything away. I felt powerful because they were here, in Daniel's world now, and they had no idea what was about to happen. At 8 p.m., Marcus called for everyone's attention. The gallery was packed, over 200 people, including major collectors and journalists. Thank you all for coming tonight, Marcus began. It's rare that we discover an artist who can capture the human experience with such raw honesty. Daniel Rivers's Invisible series does exactly that. Each piece tells a story of transformation, of finding beauty in struggle, of choosing love over comfort. He gestured to Daniel, who stood near Disowned, looking uncomfortable in his one good suit that we'd bought at a thrift store. Daniel, would you like to say a few words about the inspiration behind this series? Daniel took the microphone, his hands trembling slightly. I knew how much he hated public speaking, but when his eyes found mine in the crowd, he steadied. A year ago, my wife made a choice, he began. She walked away from everything she'd ever known. Wealth, status, family, to be with me. A struggling artist who could barely afford rent. I saw my mother's face go pale. She'd just realized I was here. Her family disowned her, Daniel continued, his voice growing stronger. They told her she was nothing, that she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, that she'd come crawling back within months. Victoria's phone was frozen in her hand. Her face flushed, but she didn't. Instead, she showed me what real strength looks like. She worked 3 jobs. She learned to budget, to sacrifice, to fight for every small victory. She transformed from someone who'd never had to struggle into someone who chose to struggle for something real. Daniel gestured to the paintings around us. Every piece in this series is inspired by her, by us, by what we built together when we had nothing but each other. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. The centerpiece, Disowned, represents the moment she walked away from that golden cage. And you know what? It was the best decision either of us ever made. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't done yet. I made my way through the crowd to where Marcus stood. He handed me the microphone, a knowing smile on his face. We'd planned this part together. "Thank you all for celebrating my husband's incredible talent tonight," I said, my voice carrying across the gallery. "I want to share something special. All proceeds from tonight's sales, and Marcus has informed me we've already sold 16 of the 20 pieces, will be donated to Arts for All, a nonprofit that provides art education to underprivileged children." More applause. But I held up my hand. Arts for All is currently fighting to save their building from being demolished by a development company that wants to build luxury condos. That company is Rivers and Stone Development. I looked directly at my father. His face had gone from pale to red. The CEO of Rivers and Stone is my father, Richard Stone, the same man who disowned me for marrying an artist, the same man who told me I was nothing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. This was going to be all over social media within minutes. Tonight's sales total $2.3 million, I continued, which is exactly enough to buy the building and save Arts for All, along with 3 other nonprofits that serve our community. I smiled at my father. "So thank you, Dad. Your greed and your rejection gave us the story that created this art. And now that art is going to stop you from destroying something beautiful. Poetic, isn't it?" The crowd erupted. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. My father stood frozen, his carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. My mother looked like she might faint. Victoria had disappeared entirely, probably fleeing before anyone could associate her with the scandal. Daniel was suddenly beside me, his arm around my waist. "Did we just do that?" he whispered. "We just did that," I confirmed. Marcus appeared with champagne. "I've been in this business 30 years, and that was the most spectacular opening I've ever witnessed. Congratulations, you two. You've just changed everything." The next morning, we woke up to chaos. Daniel's phone had died from the constant notifications. Mine wasn't far behind. We'd turned them both off around 3 a.m. and fallen asleep in our tiny apartment, exhausted but exhilarated. Now, in the harsh light of day, reality was setting in. I made coffee on our hot plate while Daniel scrolled through his laptop, his eyes getting wider with each passing minute. "We're everywhere," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and terror. "The New York Times, Art, Forum, Page 6, TMZ. Everyone's covering it. Artist's Revenge, from Disowned to Divine. The $2.3 million mic drop." I sat beside him, reading over his shoulder. The articles were mostly positive, praising Daniel's talent and our story of love triumphing over materialism. But there were also think pieces about wealth, family dynamic, and the role of art in social justice. And then there were the articles about my father. "Rivers and Stone CEO exposed for displacing nonprofit," I read aloud. "Richard Stone's development empire built on community destruction." Oh God, they're digging into all his past projects. Daniel closed the laptop. "Are you okay?" Was I? I'd just publicly humiliated my family, exposed my father's business practices, and turned our private pain into a spectacle. The old me, the one who'd grown up in that world, would have been horrified. But the new me, the one who'd learned to fight, to survive, to choose authenticity over appearance? "Yeah," I said, surprised to find it was. "I am." The fallout was swift and brutal. By Monday, Rivers and Stone Development had withdrawn their offer on the Arts for All building. My father released a statement claiming he'd always supported the art and that the withdrawal was in the spirit of community partnership. Translation: he was doing damage control. Victoria called me for the first time in over a year. I almost didn't answer. "You destroyed us," she hissed when I picked up. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Father's lost 3 major investors. Mother's been dropped from 2 charity boards. My husband's firm is distancing themselves from the family name." "I didn't destroy anything," I said calmly. "I just told the truth. If the truth destroyed you, maybe you should examine what you were building on. You're so self-righteous now, she spat. You think you're better than us because you married some artist and live in poverty? No, I said. I think I'm happier than you. There's a difference. She hung up. I blocked her number. The real surprise came on Wednesday. I was at Arts for All, working with Margaret to finalize the building purchase, when the receptionist buzzed. There's someone here to see you. She says she's your mother. My heart stopped. Margaret looked at me, concerned. Do you want me to stay? No, I said. I need to do this alone. My mother stood in the lobby, looking smaller than I remembered. She wasn't wearing her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked tired, human. Can we talk? She asked quietly. We went to a small park nearby, sitting on a bench overlooking the East River. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Your father and I are separating, she finally said. The scandal was the final straw. But honestly, we've been broken for years. We just didn't want to admit it. I didn't know what to say. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, she continued. What we did to you, unforgivable. We chose money and status over our own daughter. We told you that you were nothing when you were actually becoming something real. Tears were streaming down her face now. I watched you at that gallery opening. I saw how Daniel looked at you, how you looked at him, and I realized I've never had that. I've never had someone look at me like I was their whole world. I've had wealth and status and all the things we told you mattered, but I've never had what you have. Mom, let me finish, she said. I can't undo what we did. I can't give you back that year, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not because of the money you raised or the statement you made, but because you chose love. You chose authenticity. You chose to be brave when it would have been so much easier to be comfortable. She stood up, wiping her eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to want a relationship with me. But I needed you to know that you were right about everything. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me sitting there with tears running down my own face. 6 months later, Daniel and I stood in front of a small brownstone in Brooklyn. Are you sure about this? He asked, squeezing my hand. I looked at the sold sign, thinking about the journey that had brought us here. The sales from Daniel's show had continued. Galleries around the world wanted his work now. He'd been commissioned for pieces, interviewed by major publications, invited to teach at prestigious art schools. We could afford this house. We could afford a lot of things now, but we'd chosen this neighborhood, this modest brownstone with the studio space in the back, because it reminded us of who we'd become. We didn't want to forget the struggle, the growth, the transformation. I'm sure, I said. This is us. This is real. We'd also set up a foundation, the Invisible Foundation, that provided grants to artists from low-income backgrounds and funded arts education programs. Margaret was on the board. Marcus was a major donor. Even my mother had contributed, quietly, through an anonymous donation that I'd recognized by the amount. Exactly what my trust fund would have been worth. I'd called her after that. We met for coffee. It was awkward and painful and necessary. We weren't fixed. Maybe we never would be, but we were trying. Baby steps towards something that might one day resemble forgiveness. My father, on the other hand, had doubled down. He'd given interviews claiming he was the victim of a coordinated attack by radical activists. He'd lost his company eventually. The board forced him out, but he'd walked away with millions. Some people never learn. Victoria had divorced her hedge fund manager husband and moved to Los Angeles. I'd heard through the grapevine that she was finding herself, which probably meant spending her divorce settlement on yoga retreats and posting inspirational quotes on Instagram. I hoped. She actually found something real out there. I really did. 1 year to the day after the gallery opening, Daniel and I hosted a small dinner party in our new home. Margaret was there with her wife. Marcus brought his partner. Some of the kids from Arts for All came. Teenagers now, some of them showing real artistic promise. And my mother came too. Tentative, but present. After dinner, Daniel unveiled his latest piece. It was smaller than the works in the Invisible series, more intimate. It showed two figures, abstract but recognizable, standing in front of a small house, their hands intertwined, a horizon of possibilities stretching before them. He'd titled it, Home. This is what we built, he said, looking at me. Not the house, not the foundation, not even the art. This, he gestured to the room full of people we'd chosen. people who'd chosen us back. This is what we built. Family. Real family. I thought about that word, family. It used to mean blood, obligation, conditional love based on meeting expectations. Now it meant something different. It meant people who showed up, who saw you at your worst and stayed anyway, who celebrated your victories and held you through your defeat. As I looked around that room, at the life we'd created from nothing, I realized something profound. My parents had been right about one thing. I had been nothing when I left, but being nothing had given me the freedom to become everything that mattered.